Hello and welcome to the very first GameMaker skills tutorial. Okay, so when you first open GameMaker, you may get this screen. You don't need that, you can close it. And to close this little blog information page, just go up to the X in the corner, not this one obviously, and close it. Now you may wish to go through the tutorial on the right hand side at your own pace, but we're just going to close that and hide it today as well. Okay, so the interface for GameMaker. The folders on the left show all of your library assets, so all of the things that you will be using in the game. You've got a menu at the top and a bunch of icons which will become more apparent what they do as we go on. So the first thing we need to understand about GameMaker is there are two different assets that essentially represent the same thing. This is a sprite and an object. So the sprite is like a costume or the way that an object looks, and the object is what we actually program to do things. So they're the first things that we're going to create. There's multiple ways to do everything in GameMaker. You can right click on the folder and click create sprite. You can click the Pac-Man icon and it'll do the same thing. Or you can click resources and you've got all the same options there. Really doesn't matter what you do. So let's create a new sprite and you get this little dialog window. The first thing we need to do is name it. We want to get into a good habit here and make sure that we use what's called a naming convention. All of our sprites are going to start with the prefix SPR. It's a good idea not to include any spaces or strange characters, so let's just use an underscore. So SPR, and we're going to create a ball sprite, so let's call it ball. The next thing we want to do is, because this is a pre-made image we're going to use, we're not drawing it ourselves, click load sprite. And immediately it takes us to the default for GameMaker, the things that have been installed. If you have a look, there is a bouncing balls folder. So you can have a look here, there's heaps of options. And let's choose the basketball maybe. And it shows us, the size of it is 36 by 36 pixels. We've got 16 by 16 pixel, which is quite small. And this one here is the standard size, so 32 by 32 pixels. It's a PNG, so it already doesn't have a background, which is really, really handy for us. So let's click open. And you can see here, there is our sprite. If we click edit and double click here, we've got our editing options, our image editor. If we zoom right in, we could, if we want, use the fill bucket tool to change the color. This looks absolutely horrible, so I'm going to undo it. But you can see there's lots of options. You can even draw sprites yourself using the rectangle and drawing tools here. Let's just close that and let's not save any changes. And click the tick because we're done. There's nothing else that we need to do here, so click the OK button. All right, now we have a sprite. The next thing we need to do is create an object for that sprite or costume to go on. So the blue ball here will create an object. And same thing with our naming conventions. We're going to use obj underscore ball. And the next thing we need to do is choose the sprite. And if we click this little icon here, it will give us all the sprites we've created, just this one at this stage. And now that sprite ball is associated with our object ball. We have a lot of options here. We can choose to say whether the object is visible in the game or not, whether it is solid, so whether the other objects can react to it in a particular way. Depth has got to do with how far forward an object is, so we can actually layer objects and choose which ones appear in the foreground and the background. And today we're not going to look at the other options. Okay, so now we have our object. If we click the green run button or play button here, it will tell us a game must have at least one room. So let's create a room, which is like a level or a stage in our game. To do that, it's this icon here, all the same thing, right click on rooms or resources, create room. So here we have our basic room. Just going to make it a little bit bigger. We can show or hide the grid. We can zoom in and out. And initially our grid spaces is set up to 32 by 32 pixels, which is the size of our object here. We want to actually put our object into the room, so we choose that there. We can either click on it or choose it here when we've got more objects. That will make more sense. And you can see here on the left all of the different options we have for adding and deleting objects. I'm going to pop it right in the middle just by left clicking. Okay, we have our soccer ball or football in our room. So let's just click the tick here to save the changes. And we're going to right click and rename this RM_level1. So now when we run our game, we'll save it as an exe file or an executable file, as you can see there. And here we have our very first game, which is very exciting. Okay, there you have it, creating sprites, objects, and rooms. Thank you for listening and watching.